And so as we were walking to the theater, I asked her, I was like, well, why do you love me, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she's kind of given me a few different things of why she loves me. And then she asked me the same thing, so I'm saying the same thing to her, or not the same thing, saying different things why I love her. And I was like, hey, can I borrow one of your rings?
Yeah, because I always had like, the little like silly rings that you wear, and I was like, what are you talking about?
So I took one of her rings. It's funny because like I was in theater also, and so I can't remember if I
You were
immediately
doing like a monologue or something.
Yeah, I was doing a monologue essentially on why I love her, and then I dropped to one knee and asked her to marry me with her ring, and she at first was like, "Is this a joke? Like, is this still part of a script? What's happening right now?" I was like, "No, I'm dead serious. Will you marry me?"
Love stories fill us with joy and inspire hope for the future. And a true life romance can remind us that sometimes just one spark is all it takes to change everything. Hello and welcome to Unexpected Love Stories. I'm your host, Dawn Prushkovsky. What happens when a soulful artist and a disciplined airman fall in love? We find creativity grounded in structure and passion meeting purpose. My guest today, Melody McConaughey, is an artist, a singer, a podcaster, a storyteller, and I just call her a creative force. Now, you may know her from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, but you'll definitely want to look her up after this. Her husband, Jon, is a former airman. He was the Air Force mechanic turned health and wellness coach. He's also an EMT and a security expert. And he is Mr. Calm under pressure. They've been partnering together to create a beautiful life that continues to inspire and uplift others. And everyone who meets them is totally blessed by this couple. You're just going to fall in love with them. This isn't just a love story. I want to tell you, this is a masterclass in commitment, creativity, and becoming who God created you to be together. So we are so blessed to catch Jon and Melody right now at their home in Minneapolis before they move their family to Nairobi, Kenya in just a couple months. What? Welcome, Jon. Welcome, Melody. So good to have you here. I just can't wait to hear your story. Let's go back to the very beginning of how did you two meet each other? Like, were you looking for love? Were you like out there doing your thing? What was it? How'd you meet?
First off, it's an honor and awesome to be here.
Yes.
But do you want to talk first about how we met, or you want me to go?
Well, I'll just say, like, the caveat of how we met was that our families had history before we were even born. So the McConaughey's and would be the Campbells and Washingtons, and they knew of each other and grew up together. But the first time I actually ever saw him was in 8th grade. I was running for the city track team, and he was dating one of my friends.
Yeah, and so I was a shot putter, and I was a thrower, shot put and discus, and I was dating one of her friends, and she was like, "Oh, that's my friend Melody from across the field," and so we were on one side of the track, she was on the football field, but that was that.
But I was like, in my mind, I was like, "Oh, he looks like a jerk." And then I was like, whatever, and then just kind of did whatever I was doing.
That was the first time we ever met, and it was funny because we were on the same track team, but we never saw each other really after that. And then I remember seeing her. She shadowed somebody at my school, so she came into my high school, and I remember seeing her after school at track practice, and one of my friends was like, "Dude, I'm gonna go try to get her number. She's super hot." I was like, "She is. Good luck." And she shut him down super hard. And yeah, she doesn't remember it, but when we were dating, I brought it up, and she was like, "Yeah, I remember." But when we first, I officially met, was in high school.
Yep. So before that, I was in this journey of just finding myself and learning my identity in Christ. And I had gone on all these little dates and stuff. And I was like, at that point, I was like, nope, like, I don't want to date anybody. I'm in high school. Like, what am I doing? I wanted to focus, and I knew that love is something that you take seriously. And I didn't want to just, I always liken it to that analogy of like, when you date somebody and you have two pieces of paper, you glue them together and you pull them apart and parts of you are left behind. Like, I didn't like that at all. And so I kind of gave my heart to God, and I was like, Lord, I'm done. However you want to unfold this, do it. But I'm committing myself to you and just focusing on you. And he has a similar.
Yeah, I had read Kissing, Dating, Goodbye. No, I'm playing. I did, but I didn't care about it. No. So I dated a lot in like even junior high and high school, and we met each other. I was a sophomore and she was a junior. But I had went on a missions trip to Mexico and was just having a real God moment, or God encounter moment. And I was like, God, I'm tired of all of this. I'm going to just pursue and chase after you. And I know when the time is right, you'll make it evident. Right. So I wasn't looking, I was just chasing God. And then, I think that might have actually been my sophomore year also. So a couple months had went by.
We had given our hearts to God in that way.
Yeah, a couple months had went by, and then she transferred into my high school. And she walks into my classroom, and I was like, "Oh, she's a beautiful young lady."
Yeah.
Go ahead, God, you can say something to me. No, but no.
Yeah. So
when I kiss dating goodbye.
Right.
Yeah. What? Yeah. So when I walked into the classroom, like, there was a lot of people there, but I just saw his table and him at his table, and he was wearing this bright yellow fleece, Old Navy Performance fleece. And I was like, oh, he looks safe. Let me sit at his table. So that's where I sat.
Yeah.
And our friendship kind of started from there.
Exactly. So like I was super excited. I wasn't trying to date her at all, but we were just being friends. And she had gotten involved in a tutoring center. My dad ran a tutoring center that was connected to our church. And I ran a Bible study at the church, and she would always, or my dad would always come to the school during lunch and like pass out donuts and things like that to get kids involved in the tutoring center, with the goal of outreaching, reaching them. And she would come and help tutor at the tutoring center during the summer. And then, so she would be at the tutoring center. I'd be at work. I'd ride my bike up, and I'd only swing by the tutoring center to see her. My other friends were there too, but I see them all the time. I wanted to see her.
That's the main background of how we met.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So how long were you just friends, and when did you first ask her out?
It was probably 6 months. We were January through August then. So because you transferred in probably what, January?
Yeah. It was
February, somewhere around there. So about a good 8 months of just building this friendship. And then my church had went on a missions trip to New York. And we went to New York, and it was funny because we took a bus ride down there. What? Go ahead.
Well, all the details, there's so many details about the story, but we went on a missions trip to Brooklyn, New York, and his church went every year to just do outreach and do like human videos and like all this kind of stuff, and connected with the local church. And so I was like, I'll go. But it was this time in my life where my parents had gotten divorced, and my heart was very tender. And especially that, like, when that, I'm like, I'm not trying to date without intention. I don't want to date because this is so raw. And it might have happened within the year, a couple of years before, but it was still very tender. And so on the ride up there, I actually was in tears about my parents getting divorced. And there was this rumor that went around the bus that Melody was crying because Jon didn't like her.
Which is wild, because I didn't. I don't think I even knew this until she says I did, but I didn't know this until just now. We were talking about it a little bit ago, and I was like, what?
Yeah. And I was like, we're just friends. Like, I'm not even worried about that.
Well, like, it was funny because we took a bus ride, and I was sitting in the back of the bus, and everyone's getting on the bus, getting ready to go. And one of my best friends is sitting next to me, and I see her get on the bus, and I was about to go sit by her, and one of my other friends sat next to her. And I was like, oh man. And he was like, what? I was like, he just sat next to her. And so he calls him back there. And then so we did a little seat swap. And so we were just chatting the whole time.
Yeah.
On the whole, it was like a 24-hour bus ride.
It was longer than that. But yeah, I think it was 28 hours.
Yeah.
But then on the way, or when we got to New York, we just got to know each other better in a different element. And I think that's a lot of people fall in love on missions trips and things like that, because it's like you get to really see how they are in those different environments. And we would just connect. And every night we would sit on the steps at an old church and just talk. And we realized just how similar our stories were. And like, we've always been this had this relationship where we're very honest with each other. So tell them like the good, the bad, the ugly of like our whole life stories. And it was just like, oh, like my heart was falling for this guy, you know. But it was funny because one of our mutual friends liked him too. And so she comes up to me when she sees me talking to him, and she's like, she's like, I just want you to know, like, God told me that Jon was going to be my husband. And I was like, oh no, you know, I'm young and naive. I'm like, fine, like if God said that, then I'll back off, you know. And so the next time I saw Jon, and I was like, so like, what would you do if somebody said, you know, that God told them? He's like, said her name. He's like, tell her to back off. It's like, she says this to everybody every year.
She doesn't say to everybody every year, but I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah. But so that was so funny. So then that gave me like permission in my heart to like let go and just like, okay.
Yeah.
So from that time, it just kind of flourished. And
yeah, so that's probably when I fell in love with her, was on the steps talking every night. But me, her, and one of our other friends had to come back from that trip early because we were starting in something called Urban Leadership Academy. So we had to get back early. So the three of us took a Greyhound back to Minneapolis, and that was a 32-hour bus ride. That was long. And that's I guess when we started dating. So
yes, okay. So this is what happened. So we were on the ride, and it was like the similar thing. We couldn't really pick our seats, and I think was I sitting next to like an elderly woman.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't want to be sitting here. My friends are down.
Yeah, we were all in different seats.
Yeah. So we had a notebook, and we were passing like notes down the aisle to each other. And so finally, one of my friends, Chris, he was like, okay, let's see if we can figure this out and get, you know, I'll switch with the elderly woman or whatever, and we can like get you guys to sit together. So I'm like, okay, thank you. So, and by that time, just my heart is like, I just have to sit next to him. And so finally we figured it out, and we ended up sitting next to each other and just talking. And then we ended up kissing on the bus, and it was like my first kiss, but it was just, it was wild because I started crying, and it was just like a simple kiss, but I started crying because it was the first time that I felt like my soul was at home. And I'd never felt like that before. And he was like, what's wrong? He's like, I filled you as a man of God. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, I just can't explain how I feel right now. Like, you are my person. That's how I felt. So that was when my heart was like, okay. And then throughout going back to the Urban Leadership Academy and like working with him, it's just, everybody's like, oh yeah, Jon and Melody are a thing now, you know?
Yeah. And from there, it was like set in stone.
And that was August of 2003 is when we were official.
Was it 2003?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I remember.
So you knew that this was your person. This is the one while you were still in high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you made it through high school. What happens after high school? Because that's when so many things change in life.
Yes. Yeah. So we dated for 3 years, and then college, broke up probably a time or two in college.
When I give my life to missions.
Yeah, she wanted to pursue being a missionary, so she was like, I can't have a family and this and that. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but that only lasted maybe a week, and then we got back together, and yeah, it was funny because we were already dating for 3 years at that time. And I was like, man, we wanted to get married, and everyone's like, oh, you're young, people are gonna change, this and that. I'm like, I'm not changing. If I change, it'll be for the better. But my feelings for her, that's set in stone. That's a done deal. This is my wife. And yeah, so.
But not everybody liked that. So
a lot of people did.
that goes back to our family history. And so the challenges that we had with our family were before we were born, and it was like in the 70s. There's a lot of stuff that happened. Somebody in our family introduced somebody else to Christ, but ended up sexually abusing them, and then gave them drugs to sell to kids at school. And some of those kids like died. It was like very messy. Yeah. So we kind of said it was like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. But even when we dated, just different spiritual things started to unfold. So I remember we were dating. I think it was before college or early college. And I just felt this pull to get off. I took the city bus, and I felt this pull to get off the bus. And I was like, okay. And I got off the bus, and I walked down the road into this park and this house. I sat on this swing and stared at this house. And I was like, what is this about this house? Like, something's pulling me into this house. And then a time later, we were on a date or we were on a bus, and he's like, let's get off the bus. I want to show you our family home. It was the same house that I would sit and go to. Multiple times I'd gone to that park and sat and stared at that house. Yeah. And I was like, Lord, is there some kind of connection with this house? And it was like the house that his mother had grown up in, and like, all that stuff. But some of that stuff and my family connection was connected to that. And so when we started to really get serious, then my family was like, no, we had a lot of the, like, he's beneath you, like, that's their family, like, don't do that, it's not going to end well. And but we knew what we knew. So in the process of getting like marriage counseling and things like that, we actually had to have a family mediation between our families, so that we could have peace. Because I said, if we're going to have kids one day and all this kind of stuff, like, we have to get along, and your problem is not our problem.
Yep.
And so that we really had to fight, a lot of fighting to get to a place of being married.
Yeah, and it was more than just that too, because it was also your dad didn't like me at the time.
No, he didn't.
Just because I was,
his appearance was different, and my dad didn't like it. He had like his cornrow braids.
I didn't have cornrows yet.
Baggy clothes and his jewelry chains. And
I grew up in the ghetto. I mean,
my dad was like, no. So, a lot of things to overcome.
Yeah. Wow. Don't hear that much these days. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you know that you love each other. All these things are going on about, besides all these obstacles you're overcoming. When did you decide, Jon, I'm going to make this official? I'm getting a ring. I'm proposing to this woman.
I've been waiting for a while. Like, and we talked about marriage and things like that, and I was like, okay, we're going to make this happen. And so we were going to go to Urban Youth Worker Institute. They were having a big convention in Azusa Pacific down in California. So we went to that. And so I was like, all right, that'd be the perfect time. She loves LA. Her dad lives in LA. We're going to go to the beach as a trip. It was, who all went on the trip? It was me, you, my dad, and a few other people had went on this trip. So we had a plan to go to the beach anyways. So I was like, I'm going to propose to her on the beach. And so I showed her a bunch of different pictures of rings and things, and kind of got an idea of what she liked. And one of my dad's friends was a jeweler. So I went to his place and like picked out a ring I wanted. And they only had it in yellow gold. I wanted it in white gold. So he had to get it custom made and everything. And he allowed me to do payments because I'm a broke college student. So yeah, making payments barely by any.
I love my ring. So he did well.
Yeah. But so I knew I was going to propose to her in LA. But the ring wasn't done being made yet. So I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. And so we're walking around campus, and I was like, well, I wanted to do it on the beach, but we were just hanging out around the campus because it was Azusa Pacific University, this beautiful campus, like, and where we were walking by, there was like these rose bushes, this huge rose garden essentially to their mailroom, and their mailroom was by like a outdoor theater. And so as we were walking to the theater, I asked her, I was like, well, why do you love me, or something like that, right? And so she's kind of given me a few different things of why she loves me, and then she asked me the same thing, so I'm saying the same thing to her, or not the same thing, saying different things why I love her. And I was like, hey, can I borrow one of your rings?
Yeah, because I always had like, the little like silly rings that you wear, and I was like, what are you talking about?
So I took one of her rings. It's funny because like I was in theater also, and so I can't remember if I
you were
immediately
doing like a monologue or something.
Yeah, right? I was doing a monologue essentially on why I love her, and then I dropped to one knee and asked her to marry me with her ring, and she at first was like, "Is this a joke? Like, is this still part of a script? What's happening right now?" I was like, "No, I'm dead serious. Will you marry me?"
I think it took like 3 or 4 times for me to like take him seriously.
But she said yes at the end of the day.
I did say yes at the end of it all.
But yeah, so that was yeah. So I hope that answered the question. I can't remember.
Yeah. So okay. So This was when you guys were in college.
Yeah, we were in college.
Like, what was that year?
Because that was 3 years after we started dating. So,
so 2006.
It would have been 06, yeah, because we got married in 07.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the summer of 06.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you have to wait for your ring?
It was. Right. I think it was ready like once we got back.
Yeah.
Like almost. Yeah, she got it that week we got back. So it was almost done. He just couldn't get it done in time for the flight. But
okay, and I love this story. So Mel, how did you respond when he gave his monologue and proposed with your ring?
I was disappointed. I was like, because I think as women too, like girls, we have this vision of like how everything's gonna go down, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I wasn't like in that way. I honestly didn't believe that he was serious. So once I realized that he was serious, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, like this is a beautiful moment," and I took it in, and like it was, like it was the most. I love the way that he set it up because it wasn't like anything else that I've experienced, and I knew that he loved me in the way that he did it, and I think it was really significant too because he was still on that trip getting flack from my dad and my uncle about how he might have been beneath me. And so it was this wonderful opportunity to be like, no, he's serious. And he proposed to me on this to honor you. It was like this, it was beautiful. And I really respected him for the way that he did that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So obviously you did have to, when you told your family, you had to overcome a few things. How did you do that? Jon, how did you win over these guys?
Just by being who I am. It took a long time. But I wasn't gonna back down. Like your drama's your drama. This is gonna be my wife. I don't care. Like, so I just kept being who I am. Being respectful and being a man of God. And over time, it might have taken years, even after we were married, for them to finally come around. But yeah, they could tell me no all they want, but it wasn't going to stop me from. She said yes, so that's all that mattered to me. So yeah, I just kept being who I was, and eventually they saw. So
you were genuine. I love
it.
All right, so now you're planning for a wedding. Did you get married when you were out of college?
No, so we were still broke college students. Yeah. I dropped out because I wasn't doing so great in college anyways. And one of us had to get a job, so I worked full time, and then so we were both kind of working. She was working part time, then worked full time during the summer, and yeah, we had a lot of people come around us and help us out because I was 20, she was 21, so really young. We don't come from money. We had our wedding was at North Central University, and so we got my dad was a adjunct professor there, so we were able to get faculty discount on it. We had our friends at our church, a lot of really close family members there, or not. I mean, they were kind of like our family. They did the reception for us,
our cake, like everything. So even like it was such a beautiful picture of, I want to say, the kingdom of God and how people come together for you. Because my family was going through their own stuff and they couldn't be there for me the way that I needed them to be. And God brought, even like I started a new job at Target Corporation. This lady just like fell in love with our story. She gave me her like heirloom jewelry to wear, like her necklace and her crown. Like it was beautiful. And she did all of the flowers. My friends did the cake, and it was funny because people are eager. Like they made it like this. What is like a 6-tier cake?
Yeah, they were starting a cake
they
business.
Just learned.
They were like,
so ours was like the first cake that they did. And then we had a big Nigerian community at our church, and they did all the food. So it was just like hand after hand, and it just showed us like that God was with us. Like the most expensive thing for our wedding was like my wedding dress.
Yeah.
And everything else was like,
it took us a long time to pay that off.
Yeah. But my grandparents at the time, they were in California. They gave us money toward the wedding. They were the only ones that sewed into it. And it was like so special to us. but it was a long time coming, and we had to do a lot of stuff to prepare. Like went to marriage counseling with a
lot of counseling.
A lot of counseling, because we knew that we both carried a lot of baggage, from our past and our families, and we know that you're gonna bring a bit of that into your relationship. But the best thing that you can do for a marriage is get it dealt with as much as you can before you say I do. I'd rather have 2 bags than 6. So that was a big part of us getting there. But, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I love too. I think I've heard several times now people who say God just showed up like for our wedding. We wouldn't have had this except that somebody provided this and somebody wanted to provide that. And I just love that the story of how God cares and makes things so beautiful, for your wedding. So tell us about your wedding day. What were some of the special memories from that day?
That day.
So my wedding day was fantastic.
Our experiences were very different. So
I woke up early. Like I had my bachelor's party. All my friends came over my house. We played video games all night long. That's what we did. And then like that morning, I woke up early. Me and my best friend, we went to go to the gym. I went swimming. Just had this peaceful, relaxing morning. We all got ready. Went down to North Central. Did all the groomsmen photos and everything. And then we're like, all right, the girls should be getting here any minute so they can get their bridesmaids photos done. And like, wedding's at 10 o'clock. Man, it's 9 o'clock. No one's here. 9:45. Where's the bride? 10 o'clock. Where's the bride? Everyone's in the auditorium. So it was pure chaos after that.
So the challenge for me is like, I'm a DIYer. But I also had 8 bridesmaids, and I thought that I was going to have more help, but they left to get their hair and makeup done. And so it was just me and one of my friends. And I was like, we had to decorate the reception. We had to do all that. So early that morning, like 6 a.m. And I'm over there like hanging stuff from the ceiling. And I'm like, I have to go home and like shave my legs. It was just chaos for me. Because I didn't know what it was like to have help. I didn't know what it was like to, like have somebody advocate for you. Like I see all the brides nowadays. I'm like, what is that like to just sit and drink some sparkling water while you get your nails done? Like I did everything myself. So at the point where it was time for the wedding, I had ran home. I just put on my dress. I was like trying to decompress and like get in there and to walk down the aisle. So that was my
wild
my experience.
I was so mad after I heard all of that. I was like, y'all just left her? Like
it was.
Oh my gosh. They didn't understand bridesmaids. You're supposed to be like the maid taking care of. Yes.
Right.
So what time did she walk down the aisle for your 10 o'clock wedding?
Oh, I can't remember. She probably got there maybe 10, 15 minutes late or whatever. Might have been more than that. I don't know.
It was fine.
It wasn't. It all worked. 10:30 maybe is when we started versus 10 o'clock. So once we found out she was there, and we stopped freaking out because I knew she wasn't trying to run or nothing. It's just like, where are you? Is everything okay? So that's more of what I was worried about. It was like, what is happening? Where are you? So yeah.
And all the little things that happened before the wedding, like I hit my face on the doorknob in the bathroom, so I had this like black and blue like thing like right in the middle of my forehead. So I'm like, how do I cover this? Got bit by a spider, like huge welts on my arm, just like, come on. And then somebody took out my wedding dress. Like I had fitted it because I lost like 4 sizes. And I fitted the dress perfectly myself and hand sewed it, and somebody undid it because they said it looked too tight. So there was just all this, like, it was a lot of like, just get to the day. It's gonna be okay, Yeah. So I was so excited to finally.
Yeah. So once she got there, we were all of us were able to breathe a little bit more and like, okay, let's reset. The wedding went off without a hitch.
It was beautiful.
Other than it didn't get recorded. My buddy had the recording started, and he told his brother to watch it because he was in the wedding, and so his brother went to the camcorder and started it, or he thought he was starting it and stopped it. But other than that,
oh no,
that's fine. Other than that,
we have
everything
lots
was
of
pretty
pictures.
good.
So
We do have lots of pictures. In fact, let me just insert here really quickly. Friends, we do have a lot of pictures. So I want you to make sure you visit our website, unexpectedlovestories.com, to see all these amazing wedding photos. No video, but we do have lots of wedding photos of this beautiful couple. And you can find the link to Jon and Melody's episode in our show notes below. And while you're at the website, I'm just going to encourage you to please check out the amazing stories of other couples, because there's no two stories alike, believe me. Please don't download while you're there the free gift that I have for you. And by the way, if you have a great love story, would you please share it so that we can read it and possibly have you on the podcast as well? So, okay, let's get back to this honeymoon. Where'd you go? What'd you do?
Yeah, so we were still broke college students, and
yeah.
so my ex sister-in-law, we won't talk about that part, but they had a family cabin, so that we went up to, was it Lake Mille Lacs?
I think so.
Yeah, there was a family cabin on Lake Mille Lacs. So we went up there I think we were only there for one night though. Because we had a family reunion in Tampa.
Yeah. So I want to say our honeymoon was like 3 parts.
Oh, yeah.
So the first part was our friend who was helping me with the wedding had a connection with the hotel. Yeah. And so we had this really pretty fancy hotel that she booked for us that night. And then we went to Lake Mille Lacs, and then we ended up going to a family reunion, because it was like, this never happens. Now my whole family and my dad's side can meet him. So we left the cabin and went to Florida. But it was a wonderful time of like getting to know each other. Like at the cabin, we went and we were on the dock, and I was like, what is that in the water?
No, we weren't on the dock. We were in the water, swimming around.
And I saw these little creatures in there. I was like, what are those creatures? And they were crawfish. And so we took, I think it was badminton nets, and I like caught them, and then I like cooked them up for dinner.
Or badminton rackets, and caught them in a Target bag.
Yeah, and we I'm like, this is good. You're gonna like this. So it was like this, crash course on like, this is the rest of our life. Eat my food. Like that's
glad to eat your food.
Yeah. So, and then Tampa was the culmination.
Tampa was awesome.
It was wonderful
because it was cool. We got to just hang out with her family, all the family that she hasn't met in a very long time, if ever. Mm-hmm. So it was just a beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. They all loved me.
Yeah, that was my dad's side. Like they loved him. So I'm like, yes, like get it.
Yep, and I went to Waffle House probably every night because it was down the street from the hotel. And one of her second cousins was down there, and so he'd take me down there, and it was good.
Beautiful.
It was fun.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, and then life started changing. I know you guys moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that affect marriage and life? And you started having children?
Yeah.
We have
3
boys now.
What was the last part? Yeah, the 3 boys, teenagers.
Yeah.
So the last how many years? 18 years have been a whirlwind, yes. To say the least. So we were married for a year before I joined the Air Force, to the day. So we got married July 14th of 2007. I joined the Air Force July 15th, 2008. And then it was just it was a whirlwind. Mm-hmm. Because we moved from base to base, different trainings. We ended up getting stationed in Las Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base. We were there for just under 9 years. Mm-hmm. Our 3 kids were born there. What did you say?
I said I'm thankful for it because that's how I got to meet you. Yay!
Yeah.
So,
but even getting there was like a challenging journey. We had lost twins. As our first pregnancy.
I was in basic training during that too, so I had to fly home, or I was able to fly home during that. So that was rough.
Yeah. So to some medical negligence, and so our first move to Washington after they had passed was just this like breath of fresh air, and this opportunity to really heal and establish who we were as a family after trauma. Like that was our first big event as a family, and I think. In any relationship, it shows like if you can work through those difficult moments, that shows how you're going to last. And I'm so grateful that we had God, we had each other. And then moving to Vegas was like this beautiful opportunity to heal even more and like get to know each other even more. And there was so much joy. Like I always think of Vegas as like an oasis in the desert. And like, even when I thought that it wasn't going to be, like God surprised us so many times for our relationship and with friendships and with church, and gave us everything that we needed. So yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of couples having all that transition time, besides tragedy, but having transition and having to figure things out without a support system around, as far as like your family, your friends, that is a lot of times a mountain that they struggle to climb. And so I think it's just incredible to hear a testimony of a couple that says, you know what, we were together and we climbed that mountain and it was beautiful on the other side.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Okay. And now you're making another transition.
Yeah. So this is the biggest transition we've ever done, because we moved across country. Yeah. Like even in Las Vegas, we moved like 5 times, but
and then we were in Texas after that, New York, and then Minnesota. Back to Minnesota.
So we've always had a vehicle or a trailer, and now it's like we got to get rid of everything. And if it can't fit in a suitcase, it ain't coming.
Yeah.
So
our new adventure with our family and with God, and I think like everything that we've been through, I think is a culmination to where we're going. Yeah. And what we've learned in our marriage and what we've overcome. And I'm just excited because it's just new, like God, I think, oh gosh, we've been together for, would it be 21 years this year?
Yeah.
And I think when you're together for so long, you forget that God can do new things. And I was reminded as he's been unfolding this journey, like you thought that you have reached like the height of your joy or the height of your love or the height of the goodness for your children and your family. Like, no, I'm going to give you something completely new. So our hearts are just like, I'm just stirred. I'm like, this is going to be so good. And even the kids are saying the same thing. So we're going to Kenya.
Yeah. And it's exciting because these last 3 years.
Yes.
These last 3 years were really rough. So we're excited for a new beginning. Because we moved back to Minnesota to help take care of my parents, and that wasn't the initial plan, but that's what ended up happening. And so now we're able to move and essentially start over and just pursue what God has for us, and it's gonna be crazy
on a whole new continent in a whole new country.
Mm-hmm.
And your boys, they are so excited about this too. You said what are they anticipating being there? And how they're all teenagers, so
I know they're
preteen, teen.
14. Well, he'll be 15 next month. So 15, 12, and 11. And they're all really excited. The downside is like we have family here. My youngest has a lot of friends here, so like just that having to say goodbye to friends and family, and like we'll come back once a year, but it's not the same as hanging out every month or every week.
But I think it's really cool the way that it's happened, because like God is in all the details, and so like even when we were going through this process, our youngest met a friend who's from Egypt, and he left everything to come to America.
Yep.
And he was like, Mom, out of all the kids, he's usually the one that's like, I'm down for everything. But he was the one that was hesitant. And the other two are usually the ones that are like, we don't want to go. But they were like, yes. So I asked him, I'm like, how are you feeling about everything? Like, we don't want to go. We're not going to move in any way if all of us aren't saying yes. Yeah. And he's like, I'm just wrestling with it because it's my first season with friends. And I'm like, well, ask your friend from Egypt. And so he asked him, and I'm like, and just pray about it and see what God would do. And he heard his story about how he left everything, but it was better for him and better for his family. And his life is so different now. And he's so appreciative, of coming. And I'm like, that's going to be your story. And so after he heard that, he was like, okay, Mom, like, I'm ready to go, so really cool that God did that. Cause that's his closest friend, and his closest friend was instrumental to showing him that it's okay to go. And then he's in Egypt. So I'm like, he goes home every year, so I'm like, maybe we can create a trip where you go see him in Egypt or something like that. So,
that'd be so neat. I love it. Yeah. So you guys have had such a journey together, your life, and you've learned so much. So I'm going to ask for you to please share some great advice that you have for someone who is looking for love or is in the early stages of love. What advice would you give to them?
You want to go first?
Oh, yes. No. The advice that I would give is listen to the Spirit, listen to the Holy Spirit about your person, and listen to what they're actually saying. There was a time in our marriage where I was so mad at this man, and it was like I was so mad at him where I was like, I could divorce this man. Like, and he never thinks like that, which is thank God for me. but I did, and that was my family history, you know. And so I remember one night we were in the Air Force, and I had this dream of me singing at a barn somewhere. And John was there in the dream, and he was wearing this beautiful white tunic, and he was listening to me sing, and he was twirling around. And then all of a sudden this tornado came and like ripped him out of the barn, like the top of the barn. And I woke up in like a sweat, and I was devastated. And I was like, what happened? And the Holy Spirit's like, if you don't change what you're doing right now, it's going to be devastating to your relationship and to your future. And at the time he was asking to leave the Air Force. But I was like, oh, you know, it's good for retirement and like all this stuff. And we have a house and we're fine. And we're like, but he was saying something that he needed. And God just like sent that dream to like wake me up. And like all the times in our relationship, like we lean into the Spirit of God to inform us about each other's struggles, about what each other needs. Cause we could see, but I want to see by the Spirit. Because especially whenever there's conflict, like I ask God, like I made a mistake, please help me fix this, like, you know, or whatever it is. Receiving that empowerment and receiving the help from God and the help from people to heal the things that seem like they can't be mended. And then I have another one, but I should let you go first.
This is advice for people that are already married or people that are looking for marriage. Which one?
Probably people who are looking for love.
Looking for love in all the wrong place. No. So one thing I would always tell, because I always would have my single friends ask me and stuff like, man, how did you get Mel? How did you find such an amazing woman? And like, for me, it's always number one, I seek God first. Like make God the main thing in your life, and he'll fulfill everything else. And then, man, I just had it and it just escaped. Oh, be friends first. So like for us, we were friends for a long time. Granted, we were young. But I think if I met her today, I'd still want to be friends with her for a while. And like, let's know each other a little bit before we enter into this relationship. Because I think a lot of people, they get into these relationships and they don't know who it is. They had a good first date and you know hit it off well, but it's like, okay, you don't know anything about them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, that's always my biggest advice is seek God first and then pursue friendship. I mean, it's okay to let them know you're interested, I guess, but so they don't go off and date somebody else. Yeah. But you know, yeah, that's probably my biggest advice is having God as that foundation. Yeah, is so important.
But I was gonna say along the same lines for people who are looking for a relationship and are in one. We were just talking about this, taking the fear out of truth. I think so many times when we're in relationships or pursuing relationships, people are just so afraid to tell the truth about how they really feel, about how their perceptions, about what they might be struggling with. And the blessing, like I said, from the onset of our relationship is we were very raw and very open with each other, good and bad and ugly. And that gratefully and thankfully has been a cord that we've kept. And that can only really happen when you know that you're safe with the person. If he wasn't my friend and I didn't feel safe to tell him this stuff and he didn't feel safe to communicate with me, that would be really tough. And I've seen so many relationships where people just, they don't feel like they're safe enough to be honest. And that start from the beginning of just, if you feel safe with that person, if you feel God is leading you to that person, lay it all on the table and see what they pick up and see how it unfolds. And then that'll be a great indicator on like, you know, where you're going. So,
yeah.
Great. Anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to share before we wrap this baby up?
Yeah, I would say, because I wanted to add one more thing for advice, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I watch marriages fail a lot, and it's devastating to me, and it
four
really
within the last month
really breaks my heart. So like you're in a if you're in a marriage already or in a relationship that you're trying to have be serious, it's like don't have a back door. Don't make a way out. Like this is what I'm here for. I'm here in this covenant of marriage, and it's a lifelong thing. If there's a problem, let's figure it out. You know what I mean? Like don't just shove it under a rug until it's a monster, because a little problem ignored turns into a very big problem. So if there is something, like sometimes you have to fight, you know what I mean? But you have to fight fair. And that was the biggest thing I ever learned from marriage counseling was fighting fair. Like, don't bring up the past. Don't bring up this. Don't say you always do this or you never do this. It's like, use those, that if you're upset about one thing, talk about that one thing. Don't bring up the past from 10 years ago that you said you forgave them for.
And really forgive.
And really forgive. So it's like you're in a relationship, there's gonna be good days, there's gonna be bad days, but you can't sacrifice the good days for the bad days. You have to really learn from that. Like if a mistake happened, okay, what happened? How can we move forward from this? If you were hurt, how can I express this to you and prevent it from happening again? And you have to be on both sides. You have to be humble. Like if she's telling me, okay, I'm doing something wrong or something I'm doing bothers her, I'm like, that's silly. That shouldn't bother you. Okay, maybe it shouldn't, but it does. So how can I change so that it doesn't bother you? You know what I mean? So it's like
change perspective.
Changing perspective, but just being humble in that. Like, okay, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, because things that she does might bother me, and she might think it's silly, or vice versa. And it's like, okay, but how can we fix this? How can we actually make it through this?
Yeah. And even in that, like, I remember that book, I'm looking at it right now. It says, don't sweat the small stuff. Like I had to learn, both of us had to learn, like there's sometimes things are just trivial and they don't require an argument. They don't even require a second thought. And just, there's a lot that you have to just let go, and know your person. And then another thing that I know, I was thinking about that when he was speaking, was when I talked about baggage earlier, being aware of your mindset and what you're bringing into the marriage and the relationship. Because I remember when we first got together, I was very insecure. And I grew up in a culture like that hollaback culture where every guy had a wondering eye. And you will not, I was told by people that were close to me, your husband or your boyfriend is going to cheat on you. And when he does, make sure you have a second bank account.
That is wild.
And so I had that mindset, but I knew it was a lie. But when you're told that over and over again from being a young, a kid, you have to dismantle that and be like, this isn't right, God, I give this to you. But it came with a lot of crap in the beginning where we're walking down the street. I'm like, did you look at her butt? And he's like, no, what? So, and it took, I go to counseling. Like, he's like, they are. But I had to go to counseling, and I had to deal with my own stuff. And it's important to continually to pursue your own emotional health, your own spiritual health, your own physical health. And then I know the other thing is, like, for better or for worse is deep. It's a lot deeper than a lot of people say. And this man, this man has been with me through my insecurities. He's been with me when I'm on bed rest in the hospital, changing my bedpan. This man has been with me when I had MRSA and I thought I was going to die, and he's praying for me in his quarantine garb and running to the NICU to take care of our son. This man has been with me, and I've been with him in his hard times. And it's like, it isn't always fancy. It isn't always beautiful. But when you know your person, I know no matter what, for better or for worse, he is for me. And he knows that I am for him. That's all you need. I remember we were so broke when we got married. We had no money. We had to count pennies to get our loaf of bread. And we were having toast for dinner, like whatever. We're having some, but it was never a problem, so it's like finding your person, knowing somebody that you can trust, they're your ride or die. Like that's the person that you can fall in love with and be with forever. So,
love. Perfect. Oh, I feel like maybe you should kiss. I'm not just kidding.
What?
Yeah.
I know, right?
Oh, I
Lady.
love it. I love it. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your incredible love story. Tell us, how can people, because I know they're going to be moved by your story, how can they connect with you?
Okay, so we actually just recently started a YouTube channel called the McConaughey Fam. So if you go on YouTube and just type in the McConaughey Fam, MCCONICO, they can start to follow along on our journey. Or we're on Facebook at Melody McConaughey and Jon McConaughey, on Instagram, all these different places to follow along with where we're going and how God's moving us.
Yeah, and we
All
just
right, so
started.
what can we expect on that channel? What can we expect?
So it's going to be,
when we follow them.
Yes. So we just started it. So there's like one video on there, but we're starting just to share the content of our journey to Nairobi and just how God is moving and all the challenges that we've had and the joys that we're having. And because it's so much to unpack already. So, and we know from this journey that we're going to be called to ministry in some way. So in a different capacity that we've ever been. So it'll be really cool when people come and see like how it's unfolding in this new adventure. So
yeah. And also she has her own YouTube channel. Just Melody McConaughey. Absolutely. Go check her out. She's has a lot of stuff on there too. So you can hear her music from 10 years ago.
Oh, yes.
But which she'll start putting out more once we get to Kenya.
Yeah. So you can rest and start doing all the purpose things. That's what the season is for. So
All right. Yes. And about the time that this comes out, friends, you should be able to follow them, and they'll probably just be starting their journey in Kenya when this comes out. So it's so super excited. Okay. So Melody and Jon, your story, I just have to tell you, is proof that when two people pursue purpose together, they don't just build a marriage, but they create a legacy. And that's truly what you guys are doing, is you're creating a legacy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, friends, if you were moved by this story, then I ask you not only just to reach out to Jon and Melody, but to also start to follow our podcast, and please leave us a 5-star review and write a comment, because when you do this, the algorithm for podcasts actually helps put our podcast in front of more people. Of course, the best thing that you can do is to share our podcast with someone who loves a good love story. Remember, you can find out more about Melody and Jon on our website, unexpectedlovestories.com. The link is in the show notes below. I hope that your heart feels lighter and full of hope after hearing this story, because sometimes the best love stories were the ones we just never saw coming. So keep your hearts open, because love's waiting for you. We'll see you next time.